Good afternoon and welcome to this third video of the series Mental Strategies for Success. Now last week we discussed the power of the strategy of visualization. Now this week I'd like to discuss the strategy of objectives. Now, have you sometimes felt that you were lacking motivation? We know there is scientific data that shows that a lack of motivation is usually linked to a lack of ability to define specific objectives. So by defining objectives, we'll obviously be able to be fully motivated to achieve those objectives. And we're going to talk about this today. Now, again, scientific research shows that there are a few elements that lead to success. And one of them is your ability to know yourself. It's also your ability to make decisions. It's your ability to take risks and your ability to set specific objectives. Now, when you set objectives, there are three elements, three questions rather, you would need to ask yourself. First, if I remove all limits, what are my goals? Then the second question would be, what do I really want? And last but not least, what am I capable of? Now, people who are able to set great objectives will answer those three questions. So today I'd like to visit 4 parameters of setting great objectives in your life. And the first one is, well, the ability to remove limits. We tend to put limits on ourselves. We tend to have beliefs that we're not capable of doing some things. We're not qualified. We don't have the ability to do certain things. Well, these are just beliefs. They're usually based on either what some people said about us or about the world in general, or about our own experience in some ways, or about things that we've heard or things that seem to be rather obvious. Now, what I want to insist on here is these are just beliefs. They're not the truth necessarily. So whenever you hear things such as, I'm not capable of, I don't have the ability, I don't have the experience, I don't have the expertise to achieve that, well, try to ask yourself, who said that? You know, who is that little voice that is affirming this belief? Do you put credibility in that voice? Is it based on facts? And if so, are those facts real and repeated? Because if it's only based on one occasion, maybe you should think carefully about the validity of that belief. If you failed once, doesn't mean that you're not good at that. So again, the ability to remove limitations, to remove beliefs, will be your first criteria of success in setting absolutely amazing objectives. Now, the second criteria will be to be ambitious. You're talking about setting goals for, let's say, 5-10 years from now. And in 5 or 10 years from now, you will not be the same. You will have grown. You will have grown your skills. You will be a better person. You will be better prepared to reach those objectives. So don't set objectives based on what your current expertise is or your current abilities are. Set objectives and then you'll work on your abilities, you'll work on your expertise so that in 5-10 years you will be able to reach those objectives. And most people tend to set objectives for the future based on their current ability, and this is a main mistake. Don't do that. Set objectives, be wild, be ambitious, your abilities will follow. The third parameter is you have to be able to set 3 types of objectives, or to put them in line in terms of the short-term objectives, which are usually less than a year, the medium-term objectives, and also the longer-term objectives. So it's a little bit like defining a line of objectives, and you sort of put them in chronological sequence. And this will allow you a better vision, a better holistic vision, and making sure that they're all correlated, that you're not setting objectives that somehow are not consistent with each other. So putting them into a time frame, a timeline rather, with a clear vision of short-term, medium-term, and longer term, and making sure they're all aligned and consistent and sustainable with each other is also a great way to set objectives. Last but not least, the fourth parameter will be about, well, to be able to analyze your objectives based on 2 criteria. First, how did I enjoy? So the enjoyment criteria. Is that something I really truly enjoy doing or truly enjoy setting as an objective? And the second thing is, how did I perform in reaching these objectives? What was my ability? Did I develop expertise? Was I able to, in a sense, achieve it exactly the way I had pictured it a few years back or a few months back? Now, objectives, they have a sense, they have a direction. And I'd like to talk about this a little bit now. And you have two ways of setting objectives. Now imagine, to give you an example, imagine that you have to meet a friend to go to the movie theater at 8:30 tonight. It is 5 p.m. now, you're still in the office. Now you have two ways of approaching your sort of scheduling of your timeline between right now 5 and 8:30 when you have to meet your friend. Now the first way to set those parameters will be to go forward thinking. That means you take, okay, well, now it's 5, I need another half an hour to finish my work, then I need to go back home, it will take me another half hour, I need to change, it will take me maybe an hour to take a shower, then I need to go pick up my friend, it will take another half an hour to drive there, and so on and so forth. So that is a forward thinking way of setting an objective. Now some people have the opposite way of setting an objective. That means they'll go from 8:30 backwards, and coming back towards the time when they are now. And there's nothing wrong, you can do it one way or the other way. It's just a different way of thinking, and it shows a little bit something about yourself. Don't try to change. If you do it a certain way, go for it. That's perfectly fine. If you do it another way, it's just important to realize this is your mode of operation in terms of setting objectives. Now let me, however, show you a little bit of an example. If you were an entrepreneur and you have to launch a new product on the market, again, you have two ways of thinking about this. Either you say, well, this is how much it costs me to produce. So I know my cost of production for my service or my product. Then I put the margin, then I put the distribution cost, and so on and so forth. And in the end, I'm able to establish a valid market price. This is a very European way of thinking, going from the cost and then building up all the way down to the market price, to the estimated price that you can sell the item. Asian people in particular have a different approach. They will take it from the market price. They know how much the market is willing to pay for that product and go back down. Then I deduct my transportation costs, and so on and so forth, my margin, and I go back to, well, all things considered, this should be my production cost. And then they strive to make sure that this is the production cost. So again, two ways of approaching the market. In that sense, maybe the second way, the Asian way, might have more relevance because they're factoring the market conditions a little better, and they put more pressure on maintaining costs of production. But again, two different approaches, two different ways of seeing things. All right, to finish today's video, I'd like to point out a few things that will make your objectives of tremendous value. First, they have to be specific. You have to be able to picture them in a very accurate way, visually, mentally, any way that works for you. They have to be measurable. You have to be able to tell whether or not you've achieved them. They have to be timed. That means understanding whether they're short-term, medium-term, long-term, and understanding when you should actually reach them. They have to be ecological. That means they have to respect also other objectives or other parameters of your life and not just function individually and exclusively. You also have to be able to really specify them in a way that will make them in this timeline consistent with one another. You have to be able also to define the tools. We discussed a little bit before the fact that you may not yet be qualified for some objectives or you may not be competent. Well, what are the tools? What are the actions that you need to put in place so that you actually deliver objectives? Maybe you need to take a few classes on something or learn a new skill. So these are the tools that you need to be able to define. You have to be able to think whether you're going to take a proactive approach, as I mentioned, so going forward in defining your objective, or reactive approach, going backwards in defining your objective. This is a very important step to take. Don't ignore this one. And last but not least, you have also to be able to measure them. You know, what is your measurement? And again, based on completion status, but also based on satisfaction status. I think we also have to factor in a sense, the human element, the satisfaction. Am I happy about what I accomplished? So thank you very much. I hope this helped understand the strategy, the second strategy we reviewed today, which is the strategy of objective. We still have 5 more to go in the next 5 weeks, and I look forward to working with you in the next few weeks on those. Now again, if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and do not hesitate to share it with your friends, your partners, and your family. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.